This has got to be the deal of the century. Brittany Griner traded for Victor Bout. Remember Lord of Wars, like Nicolas Cage? The infamous international weapons smuggler who gave guns to Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, had a part in that whole thing that happened in Rwanda where lots of people died. Well, we just traded him for a WNBA basketball player. Hey, guys, welcome back to the Mike Force Podcast. This week in the news, we got a lot going on. I'm about to head out to Las Vegas to teach gunfighter pistol at Pro Gun Club in Las Vegas. Super excited about that. My last training course of the year, 17 December, I'll be teaching a survival preparedness seminar up in Heber City at our HQ in Heber City, Utah. But man, did you hear about this? Brittany Griner, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing her name. I don't focus on the phonetics of pronouncing WNBA players' names right. I literally don't care about this particular case, except that we left a Marine behind, a gentleman by the name of Paul Whelan, who's been in prison for 4 years now. His 4-year anniversary is coming up, and we can't get him back, but we can trade an international weapons smuggler, like notorious for providing support to terrorists who killed thousands of people. We could trade that guy for a WNBA basketball player who smuggled cannabis cartridges, vape cartridges. Like, if you're a vapor, that just outlines a lot for me. No offense to you vapors, but man, stop vaping. It's just dumb. And then we trade him for her. After 11 months of incarceration, she got a 9-year sentence. 9 years. This dude, Paul Whelan, who's been accused of being a spy, the U.S. government claims he's not a spy. Look, I get the international concern here. I get that there was no spy potentially available to trade, but the fact that we didn't put him as a priority and we put this basketball player as a priority, early Christmas present to the family of Brittany. And any American coming home, I'm all about. But why are we not weighing the consequences? We're talking about an administration who's going after your law-abiding constitutional rights. Going after guns, because guns are the problem, not individuals. And we traded that guy. He's going back to Russia as a hero for a WNBA basketball player who broke the law. I mean, yeah, I hate that she got 9 years. Like, that's egregious. I hate that she's in those conditions, but you technically broke a law. What law did Paul Whelan break? I don't know, just being accused of being a spy. And he'll be spending Christmas behind the bars of a Russian prison. And congratulations to Brittany. Look, this isn't Brittany's fault. This isn't Paul's fault. This is poor policy again. And what I think, I talked about this idea of the fourth turning. I don't think it's an idea. I think history repeats itself. There's a natural pattern that's taking place, and we are in crisis mode. According to the authors of Fourth Turning from 2008, 20 years into it, 2028, take you there. What's going to happen? I don't know, man. A slippery slope is going to happen. Idaho murders, the update on that. Apparently, according to the reports in the last 18 hours, one of the neighbors just reported that she heard a scream at 4 a.m. Here's my problem with investigators in this particular case. The history and experience from homicide detectives investigating it and FBI statistics would tell you if you don't have a suspect in 48 hours, you're likely not going to solve the crime. It's going to go cold. And here we are weeks later, still don't have a suspect named, and we have information leaking out like, hey, at 4 a.m. there was a scream. Well, if you had that information that was actually released through good communication from the police department, that would assist in jogging people's minds and going, hey, I heard a scream at 4 a.m. But here we are weeks later, it's just now being released. Now they're releasing information that a 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra sedan was seen in the area. My question is, when was that released? When did we know about that? Because every single day that we didn't release that information potentially, after the police department claims there's 6,000 plus leads and tips that are leading them closer to the suspect, when I think we're probably going in the opposite direction here. This information is just being released. If we knew about this like 2 weeks ago, that should have been released, because that guy who was driving that vehicle is likely long gone. Gone. Oh, by the way, it's one of the most... That's like saying, hey, look for the white Toyota Corolla in Afghanistan. We used to get those intel reports like, hey, be on the lookout. But the Bolo is for a white taxi cab. Congratulations. Every taxi cab is white, and every taxi cab is a Toyota. Anyways, I feel bad for these families, because some of the fathers are having to come out now and hard press the media and talk poorly about the communication from the police department. This is poor communication on the law enforcement side. I do understand that Moscow, Idaho is not a place that is used to this type of crime. But man, we need to get ahead of this, especially when it comes to finding this killer or killers that tragically murdered these 4 people. Did you guys hear about this Dallas, Texas FedEx employee? I won't even repeat his name because I don't want his name repeated on the air. Don't want to make him more popular for being a scumbag. The reason this stands out to me, besides the fact that I have children, and this guy, subcontracted FedEx employee, goes out and he's delivering a package in really a rural part of Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, winds up hitting this 7-year-old girl, claims that he didn't want to get in trouble, so he panicked. And even though she wasn't injured and she was still able to communicate, he put her in the vehicle, didn't know what to do, so he tried to break her neck. And then he strangled her to death. And then he dumped her body because he didn't want her father to find out. Now, this speaks to a larger societal issue, which I think is what we're going to face here, but what we're facing. I mean, the crisis as described by the Fourth Turning maybe isn't just one specific catastrophe or lead up to a catastrophe, but we're living the catastrophe, because we are living in a time and place where is social media creating psychopaths? We had this analysis back in the 90s and the 2000s where these video games that were very realistic, like Grand Theft Auto and Call of Duty, name the video game, were completely violent, and kids were disassociating from reality, and all the dopamine they were getting were turning them into zombies, and we were afraid that was going to lead to tragic outcome down the road. Has it? All indications to me, I had a dream about this last night, which is something that I often have when I'm trying to figure out things like problems. I go to bed with these problems and I'm trying to figure out the solution through dreams. Call it woo-woo, call it what you want. It's just how I was raised and how I grew up. But when I was trying to repair the problem and when I was navigating, look, Fieldcraft Survival and me personally, the guys, the subcontractors, the wonderful people that work for Fieldcraft, and myself get out and train people in person. Last weekend, I told you guys I was in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, and I was shaking hands. Often if we have in that venue 120 people that showed up to hear about preparedness, the way they can get prepared. When those people hang out to shake hands, take pictures, all of that, what I'm profoundly impacted by is individual stories. I'm not getting handshakes because they're like, oh, you're popular, this is real cool. We're getting handshakes because it's like, man, I woke up to the reality that what you guys were educating us on was profoundly impacting my life because we had to make a change. Maybe it was a tragedy or it was an accident. It was something that happened, and we tried to affect some kind of response, and we tried to be self-reliant, and this is how it unfolded. But in that conversation, we're shaking hands, we're building relationships, and it's a different thing that normal people nowadays aren't used to, because we're spending a record number of hours in the day on social media, where our virtual realities kind of manifest themselves through the chemical process, satisfying our urges for real personal engagement. And that's horrifying. That is horrifying. So is it the video games? Is it Hollywood? Is it all these things? No, it could be the combination of everything. What we are seeing now is unprecedented statistics. Murder, which is homicide in inner cities, and crime across America. Homelessness, which is typically correlated to drug addiction. Suicide, overdoses, the list goes on. So what does that mean for our society in building resilience, especially when faced with recession? Because that's what we're in, guys. We're in recession right now. We're in economic instability. But there's a whole bunch of offerings of people who are willing to hire good Americans to work, and people aren't working. We talked about this in an economic podcast on the Mike Force podcast, and we talked about people being lazy. Most entrepreneurs I hear from, the problems outside of the basic gist of supply chain issues because of COVID-19, costs are through the roof, recession through the roof, is people. Are Americans willing to get out and work? No, because why would they? Last podcast, I talked about this kid, Hamza, who talks about why American men, or men period, are weak. Well, if you don't grow up with hardship, with famine, because you're constantly feasting in abundance, then what's your incentive? If you work minimum wage and you're happy with that because you get to go home and spend 5 hours a day playing video games, then what is your incentive to get off your ass and do something? So where does that end up for our society 10 years down the road, 2 years down the road? We have more policy being created today with bigger government creating incentives for people to stay in their homes, play their video games, and the government will take care of you. That's socialism. That's a dictatorship. That's communism. Jesus. What is happening in our country? You see the social media trends of this Lensa app by Primitive Labs using a machine learning software program called Stable Diffusion. Look, how they harvested this is, you guys might have seen it on my Instagram at Mike Glover Actual, and I just posted it up to demonstrate, hey, is this the future? I did look into this company, which isn't new, guys. It started in 2018. Their software, their new release of their avatar software is new because they use artificial intelligence, machine learning to navigate all of the imagery, the art from the internet, and then taking your selfie. You upload 10 to 20 selfies, and it takes that selfie and then generates an image. That image is high resolution, so you can print it out, and it's an photography artist app. A lot of concerns were about privacy, about inclusion, about exploitation. The list goes on. You know, these things kind of happen when this kind of software rolls out. Joe Rogan posted on it, and it blew up the interwebs. You know, this business who's been around since 2018 saw record sales, and they're crushing the internet right now. 500,000 plus reviews on Apple stores. Look, it's crushing it. Is it scary? Yeah, it's scary. But what's the future like? I'm curious to kind of assess and look at the future. One of the questions to the company over privacy concerns, which is funny that we're even having this conversation when there's 3 billion users on Facebook, and we're not having that conversation about them, but a user interface that has to do with selfies and avatars, we're worried about that. They're not worried about human trafficking exploitation through Facebook groups or government and election interference through Russian troll farms, but we're now concerned at the 25-meter target, which is this new app of taking selfies. So you have the concern generally is over whether or not this AI is going to use facial recognition. Well, if you're on the internet, period, too late. Too late. You've already done that. People have asked me, like, hey, why do you put your kids on the internet if you're so concerned about privacy? Well, I'm not concerned about privacy when it comes to myself, but I am my kids. All the cyber security experts will tell you their faces, which are similar to all the faces from infants and young children, aren't constructed, aren't developed until they're 4 or 5 years old, which then I won't be putting my kids on the interwebs because I don't want my kids to be put on the internet without their permission. I mean, this is a new world that we're diving into, and it's scary. I mean, that world for me, that world for you is scary. I want a future that's better for our children's children. And so the actions I know that we take today as Americans, as being more self-reliant, more resilient, are going to affect our kids' kids. We should be thinking about that. Coming up on March 4th, me and Andy Stumpf are headed to Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas to do a leadership and entrepreneurship seminar. I often talk about entrepreneurship and the difficulties that I face because I want people who are going through that to kind of learn lessons from my mistakes. You know, Black Rifle Coffee, Evan Hafer, JT and Matt, and all the partners there, Logan, those guys have gone through a lot of mistakes that, thank God, because of their friendship, I've not had to learn myself in business. When I have these seminars, one of the things I do is I take advantage of the experiences of our guests like Andy Stumpf. If you're not scheduled to go to Andy Stumpf's Kalispell, Montana grand opening, please come out and see us. I mean, if you're looking for a vacation, mid-February, February 18th, his grand opening is going to be in Kalispell, Montana. It's going to be amazing. We'll have Fieldcraft water, Fieldcraft swag, all the Fieldcraft stuff there. And I'll be making my way out to Kalispell at least once or every other month to show my love to the people of Montana, but also get out there and, you know, break bread with real people in real time. Andy Stumpf has a profound experience as a former Navy SEAL, but also as an entrepreneur, the host of the Cleared Hot podcast. And he's done these speaking engagements throughout corporate America, teaching all of the things that he learned as somebody who went from enlisted to an officer in the SEAL teams as a platoon commander, and then deploying overseas. He shares those experiences at the leadership executive level for people who are looking to be better. So half the day you'll spend with him, half the day you'll spend with me. And this is a little bit more of a bougie experience. We got breakfast, we got lunch, and we have dinner where you break bread with us. And it'll be somewhere kind of fancy. Stay tuned for that. It's at fieldcraftsurvival.com. You guys can check that out. Also, I'm headed to Greg Anderson's January 7th and January 8th in Washington State. Greg Anderson, if you don't remember who Greg is, he's the police officer in Seattle when we were having all these mask mandates and these mandatory shutdowns. He spoke openly on his cell phone in his patrol car about calling out officers who were infringing on constitutional rights of people of Seattle. And man, what a powerful video, what a powerful time in society where you had a lot of yes men who were basically conforming. It showed us a lot about society and who you could trust and who you couldn't. And it showed us the discrepancy between elected officials and them having your best interest as the constituents, especially when it came to constitutional rights and infringement. He called him out. He got fired for it. He set up a GoFundMe. He started his own business. And now he has a tactical training company where I'm going to be a guest instructor out northeast of Seattle in a small town called Granite Falls. That is going to be January 7th and 8th. Looking forward to doing that. Let's talk about EDC considerations, guys. We always talk about preparedness type things on this podcast, but recently I've been asked, I was teaching at Gritter Outdoors, Gritter Sports in Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, in North Richland Hills, and got the question about your vehicle or your rig versus your everyday carry setup. Like, hey, what's the recommendation? I put this out a lot, but if you're just tuning in to the Mike Force podcast and you haven't heard it before, or you haven't, referenced a lot of the free information we've put out, the Fieldcraft Survival podcast, Fieldcraft Survival's YouTube channel, the recommendation is this is an EDC pistol. All right, this is a SIG Mark 18, M18. This is what the Army went to as a subcompact version compared to the M17, which is a full-size version. I love this pistol. I like it because it's an Army pistol, and I'm a big fan of that. It sits in this little lock holster setup with biometrics release. It's off camera, but it's locked in. Push this, it's released. It releases really quick. But when you look at an everyday carry pistol, the biggest constraint for you is the caliber of the round, and then feet per second, foot-pounds of energy, kind of the external ballistics and terminal ballistics of the particular caliber of the round. So if you have a 9mm, which this is, I mean, we're talking about a very small projectile, right? I mean, there's a small projectile with a small cartridge, 1,300 feet per second, 9 millimeters in diameter. Not a lot of foot-pounds of energy comparatively, but good for everyday carry because I have now with magazine capacity, I have 17 plus rounds in a compact pistol from SIG called the 365 Macro. That's a good deal versus a Glock 17, which is very much it almost feels like it's double the size of that Macro, but it's pretty big. So technology, spring technology and magazines allow you to carry a lot of rounds where, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, you were stuck with a 1911 with 7 to 9 rounds, depending on how you extended it. 45 ACP. One of the profound differences that we make sure we distinguish from carrying a pistol and open carry and carrying a pistol in your vehicle is you are in an obstacle when you're sitting your ass inside of your mobility platform, your vehicle, because you're constrained by the seat. You can't move around. So that gives you a range fan of, over here and over here. And then you have obstacles. Most of your view is obscured. Most of your target is obscured by the windshield, by the A-pillar, by the roof line, by the dashboard, by the steering column. And so if you're thinking about using force to protect yourself, deadly force potentially to protect yourself from a threat, you have to consider what that round does through obstacles. There's a debate here. I've been debating guys who are like, Mike doesn't understand terminal ballistics. I understand terminal ballistics, guys. I grew up as an 18 Bravo, and it was my job. I'm not a Brian Litz. I don't have a 500-pound brain, but I do understand what bullets do to bodies because I've been in war and have taken lives in war and understand exactly what it does and what it doesn't do. So if you think about everyday carry consideration, your pistol, people don't stand in the open on flat ranges like this, like your paper target, or like this as an anatomical target. That's good for training, anatomy, alignment, trigger, all the fundamentals, but it's not a reflection of what's going to take place in real life. So even if you just take a 10 officer-involved or self-defense shooting videos and just look through that, go to Donut Operator and look at his reviews of his videos, even with SWAT teams and SWAT officers, people are not in the open standing with pistols. A lot of times they're maneuvering, they're behind obstacles, they're hiding in vehicles. So let me give you an example. If you use a self-defense round, a hollow point round, and you hit a windshield with a hollow point round, what do you think is going to happen? If you hit an obstacle with a hollow point round, what do you think is going to happen? Well, guys, a hollow point round, which was meant for impacting human flesh, bone, and tissue, is meant as it's serrated to break apart. The reason bonded ammo became a thing is because we started to realize with hollow point ammunition that once that broke apart and turned into small cavitational wounds, it didn't potentially put the bad guy down. So what we wanted is we wanted that round to impact, but that synthetic bonded material, and if you guys, I hope you guys are watching me on YouTube. If not, go to the YouTube channel, the Mike Force Podcast, you see me illustrating this with my hands. If we have bonded material holding the serration enclosed or together, as it impacts, it breaks apart, but it holds it together, creating vertical displacement of energy, but still continuing to track through the target. That's a great thing because that's what we want. Because we don't want a laser beam like 62 grain green tip makes through bodies because it's such high velocity measured in feet per second. where it just goes through and doesn't create any vertical displacement of energy. You know, that big fog that you're looking for as it enters gelatin, for example. You don't have that fog lifting around the round. It just zips through it, not creating a lot of damage if it doesn't hit anything vital. So if you have a serrated hollow point self-defense round and it impacts something, then it is going to break apart. I'm talking minor obstacles. I'm talking about sheet metal, sheet steel on the side of a vehicle. I'm talking about the side view mirror. I'm talking about the springs inside of seats in vehicles. Well, why would that be important to note? Well, if you care about self-defense and you care about potentially putting rounds through obstacles to affect the target, that should be a consideration. And for anybody who debates this, look, our vehicle, come for free if you want to observe my vehicle dynamics block, or go online. I've done this many times. You take one round shooting from inside of a vehicle with a pistol to outside the vehicle at a target. Take a target, put it 5-10 feet in front of the front fender or front bumper of that vehicle, and you try to hit it with a 9mm round. Here's what's going to happen. The round is going to impact, it's going to pitch, and it's going to go up because it doesn't have enough muzzle velocity, foot-pounds of energy, and it doesn't have enough weighted size in the caliber and weight of the round to penetrate that glass and impact the target. You'll miss the target. I mean, this is science. I mean, if you just do it, you'll observe what I'm talking about. That round will impact high over the target. But what are we seeing from these officers who are gunfighters who don't understand terminal ballistics, especially on obstacles? They're punching the glass, getting in gunfights, shooting their pistol through their windshield. Not advised. Now, Mike, the question would be, what's the answer here? Well, the answer is every single environment that you function in should have a different protocol for the arms that you bring to bear. There is no end-all, be-all solution here, guys. I mean, I have a room full of guns depending on the circumstance. When I'm teaching what environment I'm in, here's the bottom line. You got a pistol, I use full metal jacket. And guys are like, oh, Mike's going to get somebody killed. What are you talking about? Full metal jacket is all of a sudden a dangerous round to use against a personnel and through obstacles? What are you talking about? Full metal jacket, 115 to 124 grain is what I use in a 9mm pistol. Times 17, I would say, because I use Glock 19s as well, times 15 to 21 rounds of capacity, depending on what I'm carrying. Actually, I take that back. Times 7 to 9 rounds, because I might be carrying an HKP7, because I like P7s. So that's good for self-defense. Synthetic bonded ammunition is good, depending on the manufacturer. There are a couple companies, including Hornady, where I've tested that ammunition, and it's good to go. So you take that, and then you go into a vehicle. Should you still have your everyday carry pistol? Yes, because you're likely commuting to somewhere where you're going to get out of your vehicle, and then you have to be on foot. So what I don't recommend is you take the pistol out of your fanny pack, which is where I mostly carry mine, and then put it in your center console, and then take it out of the center console and put it in your fanny pack. Have a different setup in your vehicle. Have a different setup. Now, I don't often leave weapons in vehicles. Kirsten, one of our Fieldcraft Survival instructors, noted as a law enforcement officer, she noted the statistics. Most guns are stolen out of vehicles. Not out of your homes, but out of vehicles. I've had a Glock 21 SF small frame pistol that was stolen from me from my truck in Texas when I lived there. Broken my vehicle, stole my pistol. That was my center console pistol. Crazy enough, it was found in a high-speed pursuit where somebody dumped it. Happened to be a drug cartel guy in Texas. Go figure. So I got to get that pistol back. If you are a law enforcement officer in San Antonio, Texas, you have my pistol. It is a Glock 21 SF small frame with a Deo Presso Liebherr Special Forces crest on it. I think it might even have my name or my ODA from 10th Group that's on it. Rob, one of the sergeants that works there, tried to get it for me years ago, but it's in a evidence locker somewhere. If you can get it back to me, email me at mike.fieldcraft@gmail.com. Let me just put that out there. So if I'm going on a trip, like I'm about to go to Vegas, what do I carry? 300 blackout BCM. I have a law tactical folder folded on a BCM with a Leupold, their LCO, on top of it, a red dot, and I have 20 rounds of 300 blackout. Because if you take that same exact drill where you shoot that, point of aim, you're expecting point of impact 10 foot off the front of the bumper with that 300 blackout, where you aim, that round will penetrate that tempered glass and impact the target where you intend to hit it. Now, there is a balance of the ratio of barrel length, barrel twist, and bullet weight to accommodate that. If you go too short 300 blackout, guys, you won't have enough rotation on that bullet to hold it together. And so you're going to see wonky things taking place, especially expecting to penetrate glass and then hit the target. So 300 blackout is the solution for me. Now, if I had to, would I use my pistol in an extreme circumstance? Yes. But I wouldn't try to put that round through that windshield unless it was an extreme, very extreme circumstance. Like a guy's on the dash or on the windshield, hitting my windshield with a sledgehammer, trying to penetrate the glass with my family on board. That might be a different consideration then, right? So when you take that and you evolve it into your home, what's the best situation? I would tell you it first starts with a conversation of the construction of your home. I happen to live in a very well-constructed home built in the 90s. If you live in a plywood home that's made of plywood, stick, and drywall, that is a different consideration because your 300 blackout is likely to overpenetrate your house. And if you hit a person at close proximity, which is most houses, that round is going to go through them and penetrate drywall and potentially continue until it indexes into something. So what is that consideration? It just depends. I prefer 9mm. I have a 30 cal 7.62 by 39 millimeter option. I have a Meridian Defense, one of the best AKs made, sitting in my closet upstairs that I use. I also have a 5.56 gun in proximity. Why? Because I have long stretches of hallways that are 15 plus yards, and I also have a second story that I could hold down on my front door, but my front door is made of solid oak. I have a Vivint security system. I'll be tipped off, but then I'll be in a position to, if somebody's trying to breach that door, penetrate that door with the right solution. So why not have multiple options? Be a multi-purpose tool here is the bottom line. Guys, we're heading into the holidays. Please keep your head on a swivel. Situational awareness is the first line of defense. Please use smart tactics when using situational awareness. I like to put this out often because it just reminds you. I sweep from left to right looking for patterns and anomalies that are spikes that stand out outside the routine. Those are pretty normal to us. You will recognize that. A large bang, a large boom, a domestic dispute, whatever that is, pay attention to those cues. It's not just the attention that you need, but the plan of action that you need if something starts progressing into a tipping point and a catastrophe. So that domestic starts to get louder. You don't just pull out your cell phone and go, yeah, this is going to be a good one. You have a plan of action to displace from that situation, get away, create as much time and distance as possible, and then you'll be able to be alive to fight another day. There's always a time and place, but most often, like Jocko describes, most often it's not worth it, especially with your family. Just leave. Just go away. There's a lot of crazy ass people here in society today. Today, Junior. Today, carry every damn day. Pistol, tourniquet, med kit at a very minimum every damn day. I love you guys. Be safe. I'll see you guys next week. 2 times a week is the goal. That's the objective. Don't forget to hit up Mike Force Mondays on the Black Rifle Coffee Podcast and hit up fieldcraftsurvival.com for all your preparedness needs. Till next time, peace out. Thanks, guys.